So CitCon was this weekend and it was incredibly full of information, so much so it's going to be hard to cram into one video, but here I am trying to do it, give you rapid fire too long didn't read version of the CitCon live stream. A lot of you aren't going to be bothered to watch 12 hours of video even while it was happening. I saw some people on Global saying they're not going to bother, they want to watch a recap. So here I am giving you that recap because I'm not too lazy to just repost the live stream in segments on my channel without commentary. Not going to name names, but you know who you are. They kicked off the live stream by showcasing the Star Engine. Throughout this whole video, they pretty much gave a tease on everything that they were going to talk about, but that didn't show everything. There are some stuff that they showed that they didn't show in this video, but I will say the video is worth watching. It is apparently over 1 billion kilometers of just a single sequence traveling through the universe, which is impressive. Incredibly impressive. That would have taken my PC like a year to render that. It is an impressive sequence to watch. I'm sure there's a re-upload up there. I'd say it's worth watch. I'll have it behind me here briefly before we move on to everything that they covered. Starting with new clouds, new fog. These clouds have new volumetric light shafts, so basically in layman's term, cloud look pretty, cloud make overcast when cloud cover sun, as it should. And it looks phenomenal. It looks really good. I wish I had the skill to make my renders look like this. This is what happened when you have millions of dollars and an entire team, as opposed to myself with absolutely no budget. Along with clouds, we will be getting ground fog. This will be in place according to time of day, weather, etc. You know, when fog should be there, fog will be there. Continuing with the themes of visuals, they improved water, having better specular highlights, and having proper collisions with anything having mass, whether that be the land, whether that be debris, whether that be ships. It all reacts appropriately. To give you an idea how difficult this is, it's really hard. Coming from a 3D artist, I've recently been trying to learn simulations, particle systems, so on and so forth, and that stuff is incredibly difficult to master. They've done a phenomenal job, and to have that have proper collisions with something of mass and react appropriately to look like real water is it's incredible. They showcased having having a sphere go through the water, and a bigger sphere go through the water and it react appropriately. They have foam generation, so when something splooshes in the water or when the water collides with the mass, it generates foam. This also means when you low fly above water, the water parts, foam generates, it sprays everywhere, you create a wake in the water, and you get water on your windscreen. Water look good, ooga ooga. Continuing on with visuals, they are bringing HDR in with DLSS, FSR2, TSR being their own custom version, which, if we're to believe the visuals that they gave us, looks a lot better. They also announced that they're going to be bringing in Vulcan. Vulcan will allow 2 times less the CPU drain, which is great. And then they're moving scattering of objects such as trees, rocks, etc. The things that pop in as we fly in, which is kind of immersion breaking. They're moving that to GPU. So they're alleviating the load from the CPU and putting it more onto the GPU, as most games have been doing for a while. Now we'll have it. For planet generation and terrain, they've decided to do a similar particle system. Like, you take a particle system cloud like they showed here. It's just something that gets generated, that no rhyme or reason to it, and you can see it's more dense in certain sections. This is my interpretation of it anyway. If I'm wrong, correct me down below. But in layman's terms, wherever it looks more dense, they take information of how the Earth actually is and how terrain is, the biomes, so on and so forth, and translate it to this particle and turn it into landmass with biomes, whether it be a desert, wooded area, snow, so on and so forth. And so then they could just throw these particles onto a sphere and then take that information and be like, all right, big planet. That streamlines planet generation by a copious amount. The out-of-box thinking that they did to do this process is genuinely incredibly impressive. I'm going to be saying incredible, impressive, copious, So, all the buzzwords, because I am just flabbergasted by what they showed us. It's been a dry couple of years. I am so thankful with what they've showed this time. We're going to be in visuals for a bit, but continuing on with visuals, they're bringing in ray tracing, finally, which will make it more GPU draining than CPU. So with ray tracing, this also comes with proper lighting in a cockpit. So currently when you flip upside down on a planet's surface and the planet's lit up, it gets really dark in your cockpit. With ray tracing and proper light bounces and such, the planet's illumination, as it should, will reflect onto the inside of your cockpit and will lightly illuminate it, as shown here. All of this means that it's going to be more accessible to the average person. It's no longer going to be blocked off by having an average PC. That being said, the current and now old system has a single probe, a probe being a light source, and that is what gives us our light. And then they'll do a pass with direct light, they'll do a pass with diffusion, they'll do a pass with glossy reflections to give us what we are currently seeing in game. Well, now you would think this would be more draining, but with ray tracing it won't be. It will be 25,000 probes giving us the proper lighting. It won't be like we have 25,000 light sources. We kind of will, but each one will be determining the light values on a given surface at a time. And because of ray tracing, this will be very much not demanding. Second to last thing we have to visuals is their star cloth system. Star cloth is their cloth simulator to basically give proper physics to the cloth. Like I said, I've been trying to learn collisions, I've been trying to learn physics and all that jazz in 3D modeling, and it is not easy. It is quite the feat. This definitely required a lot of people to accomplish, because the amount of hours that they had to have put into this is insane. There's no clipping, it reacts appropriately. If there's overlapping cloth, it will react separately, so you can have something go between the cloth. It is phenomenal. Like if you stand next to an object, it reacts to that. It reacts to everything in the environment appropriately, including weather. So if there's wind, it blows in the wind. It looks great. How did they accomplish this? They changed the size of the model that's providing the collisions and went from just a tube, so to speak, to a coned kind of surface, which went over my head a little bit, but it helped them do better collisions. They basically, it went from a bloated mess to something small and more capable of giving appropriate collisions. But that's not all. They took every vertice in the cloth and gave it its own collision, its own physics. Every vertice. And doing that by... That is ridiculous, considering how many vertices are in a given piece of clothing. Going straight from cloth simulation, we're going to talk about hair. Hair was, again, here's the word, impressive. It gave me a lot of inspiration and insight on how I could model hair to look better in my own animations. So typically when you model a piece of hair, it is a plane. The plane just being a flat surface, and then you put textures onto it, and it looks how it looks. And a lot of games will do it this way, and it shows. Or they'll do like a hair particle system, but it's unlikely that they'll do that just because of resource management for a computer. So what they decided to do is genuinely the smartest way I have ever heard hair to be modeled. And this is done in the 3D modeling and animating space for stylized hair, but I've not seen it done for realistic hair. They'll take a spline, or in Blender terms, like a Bezier curve. The spline will have segments, and each segment moves. So my hand right here is a point where it would move. You put multiple points on this, it's a bendy line. So they basically took these splines, slapped a texture on it with an alpha map put onto it, alpha making it transparent, and then giving this spline physics, collisions, to have it react appropriately with an object of mass and soon to be weather. The reason they went this route is because when you have it rest there, it goes back to the hairstyle that you had. But it can react to these physics appropriately and have it stretch. It can be sheared, it can be rotated, and that being the biggest issue. Like when a plane rotates, you're twisting it and you're piece of paper. So we have a plane. This is like a plane in 3D terms, right? So when you take a plane and twist it, it's going to overlap like that, right? And that's going to create artifacts and the texture won't look proper. When you take a spline, it's just a tube, right? Just a tube, and this tube can stretch. It doesn't have a determined amount of vertices on it. It is actively calculated, so to speak. At least that's how it works in Blender. I don't know if that's how it works in Star Engine. So you can have this stretch without deformation. You can have this twist without deformation, creating a more seamless collision and physics of hair without artifacting. And then they can continue to do the textures that they slap on with alpha passes on it to make it look the way it does with their new star hair. So they had to create their own setup for hair specifically instead of just using star cloth like they originally wanted to. Thank you for the inspiration, CIG. I will be doing this in Blender with my own models now as I have been struggling massively with hair. Hair is not easy, and you have to make hair look thicker than it actually is in real life to be able to be renderable. So, thus, the thick strands with smoke and mirrors of textures making it look like smaller hairs. They also introduced a particle system for like sweat, blood, and tears. So when you have perspiration on the skin, it looks realistic. It's movable. The tears come down. The blood can come out of your mouth, your nose, your ears, and it looks great. And the last thing on visuals, finally, their new destruction system, Maelstrom. Surfaces that you can take cover behind can be destroyed. Buildings can be destroyed. It's likely just going to be like dilapidated buildings that will fall apart. Everybody loves a destructive environment, especially when it comes to combat, because it makes it more dynamic to be able to hide behind cover, and then you can focus fire on that cover and get rid of their cover. Throw a grenade, goodbye cover. Crash your ship, goodbye ship. And way more than it is currently. Right now, we just get a couple clumps and it sits there. In the future, it's going to be a bunch of debris. Because, going at that high of velocity, it's going to fall apart like that. My only concern, or rather question with this, is how is this going to impact physicalized cargo, and how will it impact piracy? So currently, right now, you can soft death a ship by just taking their shields and then just shooting them up to a point. Later, it seems like you can take out their systems by focusing fire on those specific parts. But how you do that from the outside, I don't know. We'll have to see, hopefully soon. But if you full death a ship and blow it up right now, some cargo is left. What's going to happen in the future when we have this new destruction system, Maelstrom? I don't know. I imagine the cargo will it'll be like a similar system to what we have now, just look more destructive and make more sense as far as being able to loot it and what happens in front of us visually. Every object will have its own properties that it gives to calculate how destructive and the way it destructs. So that includes density, yield strength, resilience, thickness, toughness, so on and so forth. This will be a quick, short and sweet segment. They kind of reiterate it later on the second day, but on the first day they talked about audio and how they reworked gunfire, basically. So all the guns sound different, ship and first-person guns, and they sound more realistic. There will be more compression because our ears can only handle so many decibels, and when we're in the cockpit, things will be muffled. Outside of the cockpit, I got really good headphones. I've got a sound card. That shit sounds good, dude. It's so bassy. It has so much oomph. I cannot wait. It is so satisfying. Moving on to engineering, which looks great, and I cannot wait for this to be into the game, because now people won't be able to solo their massive ships, nor should they be able to. That being said, there has been talk of NPC crews in the future, which I'm sure you're gonna have to pay for, but they didn't really touch base on that just yet. But they did, I think, like, what was it, like a year ago, I think they talked about it. What is going to be involved in engineering? We'll dive deep in that in a second. First, we're going to touch base with fire, because that's heavily involved with engineering. So fire is on a voxel system. They do a 1 meter cube for it to determine how the fire is going to spread. The fire reacts according to mass, like how easily it's going to light up, the type of material that it is, the density, and it will spread the fire accordingly. As shown here, only the sides light up, and eventually the walls light up, but the floor in the center does not, because of the materials. We will need fire protective suits, so anything heat resistant, such as a pembroke, and we will be given multiple avenues of taking out the fire. Fire extinguishers, sucking it out with the vacuum of space, you know, you get the idea. And if they're not intended to relatively quickly, it will take you down. So that brings us into what you can do as the engineer role on your ship. Well, there are multiple relays that correspond to functions in the ship, whether that be quantum drive, shields, life support, so on and so forth, that when they're taken out, like a fuse can be blown or there will be damage to the component itself. So as an engineer, you have to either delegate people to go to it or go there yourself to repair or repair the component or replace the fuse. That being said, shown here with the map of a ship, which you can see either on your Mobiglass or on the engineering terminal, you can open and shut doors, you can open up the vacuum, you can seal it off. When you are boarded, you also have a lot of control as an engineer. You have a big role to play when you're getting pirated. That also being said, you can see where people are on the ship, and that helps you delegate who to send where. When things are green, like doors, they're open. When they're red, they're closed. When something is damaged, they turn yellow. When it's red, it's destroyed, so on and so forth. So maybe keeping spare components on your ship, depending on how long your journey is, would be advantageous. Possibly something we may have to be concerned about when we go to Pyro. Along with maintaining the components in your ship, there will be a serious amount of power management. And power management will have a minor boost with an external battery. This external battery will give us a little more power, so we can delegate it to components that we need to have a little more power, because you're not going to be able to have everything maxed out. You're only going to be able to put so much power into so many things, kind of like it is currently, but it's going to be more detrimental in bigger ships. Dogfighters like a Gladius, an Arrow, etc., a single person kind of ship, it's basically going to function relatively the same, but you can maybe land somewhere and repair your component or call in for someone to bring you a new component. But for bigger ships, this is a bigger deal. To be able to recharge your battery that is in your ship, because it will be depleted, you have to delegate some power to the battery itself. So it's basically the power generators are kind of going to be like an alternator to the battery in a car. You fill up the battery and then you can delegate power elsewhere. That battery can power other things. Bigger stereo system, bigger battery. Bigger systems in a ship, bigger battery. Here's the ship portion of the convention. So they announced a new ship. If you don't know what it is, it's the Zeus Mark II, which is the successor to the ship that started our traversal from the beginning. The very first ship that had a quantum drive was the Zeus. RSI has decided to make a newer, more modern version of that, because the original Zeus is outdated, and here it is. It is a beaut of a ship. I love it. It's about the same size as a Crusader Spirit, but better. better in a lot of ways. We don't know the hull HP, we don't know the speed of it, so the Crusader Spirit will likely have more hull HP and higher speeds, my guess would be, but we don't know just yet. What we do know is there's 3 variants. The ES has a cargo capacity of 32 SU. It can fit a Cyclone in the back. It has 4 size 2 shields, apparently. Does that mean we have 4 separate shields in this thing, or is it in quadrant formation? They didn't necessarily clarify. 2 size 2 coolers, a size 3 fuel tank, a remote turret which has 2 size 3s. It has 4 size 4 fixed guns on the front, and it has a size 3 radar. So, you know, an exploration ship. And then they have the Zeus MR, or Mark. This ship is your bounty hunting ship. It has 16 SCU, it has prisoner pods, it has an EMP device, and a quantum dampening tool. Keep in mind these ships are supposed to be 3-person crewed ships. So that being said, this ship also has 2 remote turrets. Now, with the power delegation that we were talking about previously in the engineering segment, I would imagine that you're going to have to delegate power accordingly to like EMP and dampening and whatnot to be able to use this ship appropriately. And I feel like the co-pilots should control the EMP and the dampener in order to make more of a dynamic crewed gameplay, because the pilot is going to have to be maneuvering and shooting their guns. The co-pilots would have to be shooting their remote turrets and possibly controlling the EMP and the dampener separately. Like 1-person EMP, 1-person dampener. I think that would be the most ideal way to go about it. So this thing has 2 remote turrets, like I said, so 2 size 3s on each turret, and then 4 fixed size 4s. That kind of gives me the impression it's going to be like kind of nimble. This one has 3 size 2 shields, so a bit of a nerf on it compared to the Essential, but it has a lot more firepower. The Zeus Mark also comes with an armory for your bounty hunting needs. The last variant being the Clipper. It's the cargo variation as 128 SCU. That's a freelancer. It has 1 size 2 rear mounted tractor beam remote. It has 3 size 2 shields, 2 size 2 fuel tanks, and it has a remote turret on it as well, underside. The MR is the only one with top and bottom mounted remote turrets. Alongside with the Zeus, they announced the Drake Cutter Scout, which will basically just be a better cutter. It has almost the same interior, better layout, better space management in my opinion. The main differences being the thrusters look a bit different. They slapped a cooler looking wing on the back. It has a big radar saucer on the top. It has a engineering station in the back of the ship because they extended the cargo a bit, redesign the living quarters. This thing is to basically, well, scout things out. So you're going to have the ability to do stealth scans and more noticeable scans, long range scans, of which you can set a quantum marker to it and jump to that location. These scans will also give you a lot of information on what you've scanned, like if it's a ship that's about to quantum, like if it's a ship that's like fight ready. Pretty much everything and anything you would ever need to know about what a ship is doing, it will tell you. Not yet in the game, but will be soon. TM. CIG has a massive backlog of ships. They have 200 existing vehicles, and then they have 12, I believe, 12 ships that they plan on releasing in the next year, and then about 24 or so ships that they are currently working on. Those ships that are to release are shown here in their silhouetted fashion, and I'm sure you can spot what some of them are. You can debate about that down below. Some of them I have no freaking clue. Others are very obvious, like the Origin at X1, the Zeus that we just talked about. and most notably, the Polaris. A lot of people have been waiting for this Polaris, and here's a little clip of the Polaris in action in its white box form. Yes, you saw that right. It shot 4 missiles and blew up an Idris. I'm sorry, what? That's insane. So when it comes to capital ships, they're going to focus on basically like a manufacturer at a time because they have the same design language. It's a lot easier for streamlining and workflow for a development team. So once Polaris is out, Galaxy and then the Perseus will be following. They said whenever Squadron 42 releases, the vehicles that will be coming out with that will be the various variations of the Idris, being the M, P, and K. The Javelin will also release, and the Vandal ships being the Blade, the Glaive, and the Scythe. Next up is UI. The UI is so much better, and we can actually see things, and when we get notifications we can actually notice them, because I'm blind as a bat and I don't see these things when they pop up, so I miss a lot of party invites. But as shown here, you can see it pop up clear as day, and then contract information pops up in the top right. You may have also noticed there's a compass and a lot more information like radiation on the screen. So there's a lot more environmental information, and that being said, we can now scan in first person finally, and we'll have AR hologram visuals pop up in our visor telling us where a person is. We will have little spinning triangles telling us when there's an explosive out there, such as a grenade. We will also be able to scan ships in first person. Thank you. Alongside with that, they updated the Mobiglass. The Mobiglass looks way better than what we're currently dealing with. It's much more legible, and there's cute little animations for the icons on the bottom. You have contract information, objective information, the environment information, the stuff that have to do with your physical condition, and pretty much everything else that we usually have. What's coming in addition with this? Well, as you saw with engineering, there are maps. Maps can be downloaded at locations. So let's say in this example, you're at Orson, and the current area you're in, you don't know where you're going. You can go to a terminal and download a map, and then now you have a mini map in your top left corner of the screen. Finally, oh my goodness, finally. What comes with this map? Well, you can set markers. These markers can have AI pathing to them, and it will automatically adjust even if you deviate from the path. On top of this, you can also set up a marker for a valuable location, such as a good mining spot, a ship to salvage, etc. Anything for any other sort of job in the game, and you can mark it and then sell it on the market. You can mark it and sell it on the market. Anyway, when you're traversing a ship, in this demo, they showed a ship show up that you have to go onto, and when you're on Orison, it's showing you that map, but not only that, it's showing you the ship, and you can seamlessly, the map goes seamlessly from Orison to ship, and now you can look inside the ship via your map. But not only that, you can zoom out from that location, and now you're looking at Orson, and then looking at Crusader, and suddenly now you're in the star map, the new and improved star map that we've all been waiting for ages. So with the star map, you have quick press options to where you can zoom into your location, zoom out onto the planet, stuff like that, as well as a search option that will be later implemented, but currently we have a drop down and we can go to, like, let's say Area 18 or a specific moon, and it will take us directly there on the map. Navigating the star map is so much better now. We can move and rotate the map as we've been able to before. The only difference is before, the names were rotating with us being able to read it. So they were always, top down and legible. They seem to have done away with that and made it fixed to the location. which I have mixed feelings on because there was the issue before where the names would overlap one another, but at the same time, it makes it easier to read. So I guess it's a rock and a hard place, catch-22 kind of situation, but whatever. The star map looks great. Ooh, this is a lot of info. Now we're finally on to character creation. The new character creation looks great, and it's something that we've needed improvement on for a long time, much like everything else in the game, but this looks phenomenal. One of the best character customizations I've seen in a game in a very, very long time. So currently we have 16 faces to choose from to blend between. With the new system, we'll have 60 faces. That's a lot of faces. And currently we have just sliders to move between, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. That gets us somewhere, right? But it's very minimal and kind of clunky. So you can continue to do that, or you can just hand sculpt the character. Thank you. This is a feature that every character customization should have, as well as color palettes. So instead of getting a predetermined skin tone, hair tone, eyes, you could choose your own. And you're just given a color palette. You can select any color you want. Sick. Okay, so what does that mean for eyes? You can choose whatever color you want. What does that mean for skin? You can choose whatever color you want. What does that mean for hair? You can choose whatever color you want, as well as have a gradient, or known as an ombre. Or maybe you want just a chunk on the side, be gray, and then the top colored, or whatever. You can do whatever you want, and you can choose how much the gradient is. This looks so good and extremely well done. We're given a select amount of hairstyles to choose from soon. They said it's ready for the persistent universe. It's ready to be able to be in the game. So it might come with PTU for 322. I'm hoping. How they are able to make hairstyles a lot faster now because they have a hair library. They have different shapes and lengths and whatnot for any hair that they could possibly think of. Anything from something simple to something extremely difficult to make. Dreads are hard. Very hard, especially to make it look this good. So character customization is way better than it's ever been. Back to talking about skin, we could choose the complexion, we could choose the weathering, we could choose to have freckles and makeup even. It's a proper character customization. No more of the days of just choosing the default, going to the hair, and getting the what is that, the bob cut? What is that haircut where it's like straight across and it goes down and like frames the face, and it's, you know, the one I'm talking about. That's what I choose every time. All of these features are available for everyone and inclusive, so you can have a beard on a woman, you can have makeup on a man. You get the idea. That goes for hairstyles too. My only concern, and I'm kind of hoping that they do something, or maybe this comes out and they just didn't say anything on it, but if we go through the trouble of creating a character, and currently we deal with a lot of wipes anytime they put out a new patch, right? So does this mean we will have the ability to save a preset, perhaps? Because with that intensive of a character customization, it's going to take a while for us to create our characters. No one's going to want to do that twice. So I really hope they have the ability for us to save some presets like some other games have. So maybe we can have like a select of like 3, 5 maybe presets that we could save. I would recommend doing that. I hope that they do something like that. It would make sense if they do something like that. If not, then it's going to go back to me just choosing the default of ridiculous haircut and start. Because if my character customization won't mean anything until they're done releasing patches that wipe our characters, then I'm not going to be bothered. Except for the very first time, because I'm going to want to play with it. The cool thing about this character customization is it's what they use internally to make NPCs. That's amazing. So we basically have the tools that they have to make our own character. That's great. That is, I couldn't ask for better. This section is going to cover the life in first person section, kicking off with EVA. EVA is extremely clunky and it is brutal to get in and out of ships. There's lag time when you hop out of a ship and actually gain control. If you go into a ship, you're If you're not a veteran in the game, you're likely going to faceplant, and even if you are a veteran, you still faceplant. Now, instead of just being stiff-armed in a weird like A pose as you fly through the air, you'll be in a laying down prone pose. This allows for more natural rotations, more narrow navigation throughout space, so you can thread the needle in some narrow spaces and not have such a wide collision box around you, so you could actually navigate these narrow spots. So it makes a lot more sense, and it's a lot more user-friendly. With this EVA system, they kind of showcased this. I'm not good with times, but they showcased this a while ago to where you can like walk on surfaces in 0G with your hands. Great. That is fantastic. Same with being on foot. So like if the gravity gets turned off in a ship, you would just be able to navigate it moderately the same. I think there will still be EVA in 0G ships, but you have like magnets on your hands and feet, so to speak. Ladders, we can use them like normal Who-Man. Instead of being stuck in an animation climbing up, now we can jump onto a ladder at a midpoint. We can look around on the ladder, and we can stop at any point on the ladder, so we can like sneak up and look over a ledge and choose to go up there or not. Speeds on foot have been adjusted, so that meaning like they removed the speed penalty for holding a weapon, improved inertia, and it's already in game. By in game, I assume they mean not Star Citizen. They have added a slide, which they are still balancing, but sliding's always a good thing to have in a first-person shooter. There will be unconstrained aiming while sliding, but like I said, they're still balancing. It gives you a mild speed boost to get to cover. There will be radiation, so there will be effects based on the body volume, surface exposure, regen, protective layer out of danger. So like if you have like 50% radiation meter full and you take some cover away from whatever's emitting that radiation, that will lower the radiation that you've received. So if this meter gets full, then your radiation protection is depleted, and then your health melts away. It's gone like in an instant. So interacting with objects has improved. Instead of having an inner thoughts menu and you hold F and then you go and click on something and all that stuff, it's more intuitive. When you look at an object, a little AR card will pop up and giving you the prompt to interact with it, and then another menu will pop up and you can choose like what you do with it. If you grab it, stow it, inspect it, yada yada yada. You can do that with any object. With the scanning that was showed earlier, this will allow you to scan a room and it will populate what you're able to interact with and what sort of object it is. This also comes with a new Inner Thoughts wheel rather than a funky menu. The Inner Thoughts menu is customizable and the interactions are all animated. So if we want to go turn off a light, we actually push the button and turn off the light. What a concept. But this goes for everything. That makes the world feel more tangible. It's necessary. I'm glad they have it in there finally, and there's a reason why they're showing all this, which we will get into later. There are looting screens now, which will allow us to have quicker looting in highly stressful situations. So you could choose to grab a gun, ammo, meds, and you have your general inventory as well. So this will be able to make it so where we can make quick decisions rather than just being, oh crap, open the menu and it lags up and takes forever, and then you gotta click close it and it lags up and closes, and by that time we likely have gotten shot. No longer will that be the case. With FPS changes, there are also now takedowns. These takedowns have a progression system based on your skill level, whether it be novice, advanced, or expert, and you have a pass or fail chance. The pass or fail chance is determined on likely the enemy's difficulty and your own expertise in that category. So you have a chance to pass or fail, especially if you're a novice, and these takedowns will change as you progress in that skill set. They get kind of brutal. Along with this, there will be restraints, so you can now cuff an enemy's hands together and ankles together. They can't attack you at that point, but they're still able to yell out for help, so you can hide these bodies. Whether they're dead or not, you can hide them. I don't know what hiding a body is going to do for them yelling, but like I said before, there is scanning available in first person. You could charge it up to see farther, or just do a short burst to see closer to you. Scanning does put out an energy signature, so bear that in mind when trying to be stealthy. You can see through obstacles, you can populate databank, and there's a recharge timer. With weapons, there's now weapon wear, which will change the resaleability and the durability of your weapon the longer you use it. So the more you use it, the more likely it's going to have a wider spray and more clunkiness, and likely it's going to be jamming a lot more. It's going to become more inefficient in battle. So take care of your weapons and store them properly, because putting it into some dirt, picking it up from some dirt, having it exposed to the elements will ruin the quality of the weapon. They also changed the weapon recoil to be more realistic and actually feel powerful, depending on the weapon you're using, of course. So there's more spray on some weapons, there's a lot more recoil, so you can kind of feel the gun like hitting, getting closer to you. The camera, there's a little more screen shake with it. It looks really good. Along with this, there are Volt weapons. These Volt weapons are a new series of weapons. They're energy based and can overheat. Everyone loves a good energy weapon. They've improved scopes visually to, look. And these effects are in place even while on the ground. So before we could only reload from our hip, whatever's equipped on our person. Well, now they have backpack reloading, so you can reach into your bag and reload. It will just give you a hindrance of longer reload times. A new crosshair is more dynamic, so apparently people are using like third-party ones. I didn't know that was the thing, but it will adjust according to where you're looking and how you're moving. There will be an improved PVE experience because the NPCs won't be brain dead. Finally, anything you can do, the NPCs can do and potentially do even better. They show a little demo of how that could go down. Honestly, I felt like the person playing was an NPC, just judging by their decisions. However, that was likely because they were trying to showcase everything that could potentially happen, but I digress. Part of what's improved the PvE is that they're giving these different NPCs different sorts of traits that make them more adept or completely incapable of certain situations, and they can push you really hard or just stay wide out in the open, depending on how many brain cells they have. That being said, NPCs will be downed, and when they are downed, they can be rezzed just like we can. Like I said, anything we can do, they can do as well. So keep that in mind in the near future. Their behavior changes will change depending on the situation. So that person that got downed got up and had to look for a gun to pick up because they dropped it when they were downed, which we kind of currently have in the persistent universe right now. But, it's Star Citizen, it's a little scuffed, but it won't be soon. PvP will be seeing some changes. It will no longer be a 2-tap to the dome piece to take someone out. It will now be multiple shots. There will be more reaction time. It'll be not like how gun rushes and you spawn and instantly die because you spawned in front of someone. Please and thank you. Also, CIG, please fix those spawn locations in Arena Commander or Gun Rush. I'm tired of spawning next to people and dying instantly. Okay, so moving on finally to Taking Flight. Taking Flight has a lot of changes. It's a lot more immersive, so you have a lot more pre-flight stuff to do. Right now it's just, turn on ship and take off pretty much, but here soon we'll have to get in. There's a rested position, and then you look around. You have to like close the canopy for your ship, turn on the engines and turn on the system, and then get ready to fly and then take off. All interactable with an improved inner thought system. As shown before, this also goes into the inside of any ship, so all those buttons, switches, and knobs that we see will actually be used for something. They've improved the targeting system for ships, so it will be like, as they showed here, instead of you and a ship and you shoot and the shot, like you're shooting from a wing, so it's not going to hit. So instead of being like this, you're like this and the shot's going to hit, and the pip is translating that for you. All of the MFDs are revamped. That includes the power triangle, but all those can be hotkeyed just as before. And with the MFDs, we can switch the screens and go to all of them with keybinds. We can set them up on keybinds. And they said there's 100 keybinds, and when they said 100, they mean 100, so there's possibly even more. There will be new configuration profiles depending on the different situations, so like if you're in combat versus navigation mode with the master modes that are coming in, and the configuration of ships are now persistent. That being said, with master modes there will be no more tricording, so that just makes it easier for them to balance, as well as just, I think it just makes more sense. Tricording gave you, I think they said like a 50% increase in speed, which makes it difficult for fighting, especially for the average Joe, so it's going to make it a lot more approachable for anyone to try it out. In regards of master modes, there will be an SCM mode, as most of you know. So for example, the Gladius will be moving at like a 225, 250 max speed in SCM, but that limit can be breached by boosting and you can get upwards to 500 something. This is important for when you want to switch over to navigation mode and quantum somewhere else and get the fuck out. Mostly because your shields are gone when you're in navigation mode. So you're kind of SOL when you're trying to leave the situation. That'll make fights a lot more interesting and a lot more intense. Some people are concerned about that. They're in a minority, in my opinion. I think that's a great and phenomenal change. It'll make people really second guess what they're going to do next. So with this, there's AI improvements, and they showed pretty much just some AIs fighting each other. I kind of wish they engaged with the AI in the demonstration, but they didn't. I would have liked to see how they interacted with the player, but by pure observation of how they're fighting each other, it looks like players fighting each other. Along with this, they showed a live demonstration of taking down a hammerhead, and shooting the whole of it, you're not going to make a lot of progress. However, the vulnerable points of a hammerhead are the turrets, and you can do focused aiming on it. I can't remember exactly what they called it, but it's basically, I think it's like precision aiming or something like that. You zoom in really far and you can have a lesser spread of your shots, because now they've added a spread to them. Nothing crazy, but it's there, and it will affect your accuracy for those shots to hit. If the circle's small and green, you're likely going to waste ammo, but if they're close and it's big, then your shots are going to land. So not only did they add a new animation to quantum jumping, there is also gameplay involved with it. When you initiate your quantum jump, you have to control the ship and maintain it within the quantum bubble. If you don't do that, you pop out of the quantum jump, and the ship doesn't like that. Once you lock it in though, you're good and you can take your hands off. Some places in the Pyro and how these locations will change. These places will change depending on like whether it's just a hostile or not hostile environment, like a farm as opposed to an outlaw group. These locations are modular. A certain set amount of assets, now they have a bunch of assets to be able to mingle together and make unique outposts, as opposed to what we have in Stanton currently, with bunkers being cookie cutter all over the place. How you interact with these locations will depend on your reputation, so that being neutral, negative, positive, it will change on what you can do there, how they interact with you, if they're upset with you when you actually show up, if you can do sales with them, so on and so forth. That all is impacted by your reputation with said group. There will be like some mining social areas, some combat spaces, social, and just plain social, industrial, exploration. So along with these new pyro locations and them being modular, we will be seeing more derelicts in Stanton. They won't just be at like Daymar and Microtech. Some will be even on Hurston. It seems like they'll be scattered across Stanton in general. One of these locations is like an oil rig type setup. They said they only showed 4, but they said that there's more than just the 4 that they showed. These locations will also be NPC driven. And they'll be independent or associated to some sort of faction, and you'll be able to do trades and missions at these locations as well. I've briefly talked about Pyro, but now let's deep dive into it and what we're going to be expecting from this location. There will be new stations. These stations are massive and completely look different than what we're used to seeing in Stanton. And these stations will have enough content in them for us to just be on the station for a while. There will be missions given out in these stations. They will be controlled by different factions. And what you can do in these stations is dependent on your reputation with the said faction controlling this station. The theme of this station is incredibly run down, of course, but it's also going to be branded depending on the faction owning it. The different factions that they represented in the demonstration was Dusters, Headhunters, and Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready is the one that owns Checkpoint Station, which they demonstrated in the Pyro demo at the convention, and the one they largely showed throughout the actual live stream. These places will have a mix of social and combat gameplay, so you can either interact with other players, given the social aspect, or if your reputation's not what it should be with this faction, it could lead to combat. Now, the certain parts of this place will be blocked off to you depending on what your reputation is, so you can either gain rep with this group or sneak in there or bribe someone to let you in depending on what your rep is. If it's a pretty negative rep, you're likely going to either sneak or fight your way in. Being that you have stealthy options, you can travel through the air vents of this station. These places will have your typical commodities like the other stations have, where you can buy food and resources, so on and so forth, and sell it. You could also find tasty little grubs throughout the station that you can munch on, because it's Pyro. And you likely won't have very much food in these stations, and this is what these people are living off of because they got on the station and can't leave. These locations will have mission givers and gang activity. I believe they said they had like 20 something stations in Pyro itself, along with the several planets that they have. There will be PvP and PVE interaction in these stations. What that entails, not entirely sure, but we're going to find out soon, because they announced that Pyro is going to become available to backers come October 31st to be tested in their experimental channel, or whatever they decided to call it. So if you have a CitCon goodie bag that you bought, you will be considered one of the people to test it earlier on, and then they'll go to their normal avenues of, you know, how much money you've spent, how long you've been playing the game, and who's a subscriber, etc. And it will eventually all be trickled into Pyro. But October 31st is the first time anyone's going to be able to see it. One of the big bombs that they dropped on us was a demo, a live demo of server meshing and replication layers. In extremely dumb ooga booga speak, it basically is just picture these three rooms being separate servers and they will transfer information. They showed a demo of this. I'm not smart enough to be able to relay this information well enough, but basically they showed that they have accomplished the technology of server meshing on a small room type of scale, so theoretically they should be able to scale this up and give us server meshing and replication layers. This is the first time we have seen tangible evidence of them making progress with this, so hopefully we'll be seeing that in the near future. I'm thinking optimistically here we might see testing for replication layers in 3.22, but they didn't confirm anything on that. So they announced something that they addressed earlier this year, if not last year, distribution centers. And distribution centers having some sort of faction control, as most things do, and they have multiple landing pads and hangars and transport, road support, navigation to from in the DCs and out. There will be, like if it's a UEE faction, there will be more military, hacking and stealing will be involved, search and destroy, you know, eliminate the VIP, eliminate all sort of missions. If it's a Grey Cat sort of facility, there will be more manufacturing and assembly, there will be more cargo hauling involved, there will be more resource gathering and mining, as well as maintenance sort of gameplay. Each location will have an administration area, which will pretty much just revolve around, you know, smaller ships being able to land up there, and it will be very minimal like delivery missions. There will be quest givers up there as well. There will be assassination contracts, as well as a security office. There will be elevators to other sections, and of course it's going to be decorated in accordance to whatever faction is holding it down. Now, the cool gameplay that is involved with these DCs, raids, and this will be group gameplay. Basically, the long and short of it is you go in either stealthy or guns blazing, take the stuff you came to get, and get the fuck out. There will be defenses. There will be people you have to fight. There will be turrets, so on and so forth. So it will be an incredibly fun to do, and it will be dynamic, which means it will notify other players in the server that you are doing this, and they can counter you while you're doing this. They have mentioned that they plan on putting in more puzzles into the game. So an example of this was a multi-tool puzzle for traversal in the DC, where you're moving product from one wall to the other to create a path for you to travel through. And that segues us into the new cargo hauling missions, which will be so much more fun than what we currently have, because right now it's go to kiosk, buy thing, go to other location, sell thing at kiosk, hope no one pirates me. Now it's going to have a variety of product that you're hauling, whether it be something that's explosive, something that's fragile, something rare, and whether you're going to be chased by security or attacked by pirates. It's all going to have that involved. So no longer will be the days that you're a solo cargo hauler unless you're in something smaller. That means more crew gameplay will be introduced in the very near future. This brings us to personal hangars and freight elevators. Now, in the demonstration, they showed like this little cute little pallet jack thing. It's not little. I don't know what else to call it. It's basically a Star Citizen pallet jack where you walk with this levitating thing that's holding the cargo that you have. You can walk and run with it. This will apparently also be in your personal hangar to use with freight elevators. Of course, freight elevators can spawn cargo, and then you just load it up into that, take it over your ship, load it into your ship, which will help a lot in the whole transferring process. But these freight elevators don't only load up freight. You can load ground vehicles. Yes, we won't have to go to mining facilities or ground hangars at some landing zone to load up ground vehicles to load into a ship or some event, as well as ship components. So basically, this will just be our own little personal hub to decorate and also do everything we need to do for our ships and get ready for going out into the verse, because it's way too time consuming to go millions of kilometers to get yourself squared up and set up to go. That includes spawning small ships. So you can bring in dogfighters, you can bring in snub fighters in these personal hangars. It's a one-stop shop for us to get ready to go do an event. It won't take us an hour to get frickin' ready for anything in the game now. Albeit we'll likely have to go to various vendors to get the components for our ships that we want, but this freight elevator will help minimize having to do a lot of that legwork. Now, one of the biggest bombs they dropped at CitizenCon: land claims. And what do land claims mean? Base building. When's the last time we heard about this? Ages ago. They're starting development come first quarter of 2024. Let's go, dude. How that's going to pertain to persistence and replication layers, server meshing, they've yet to determine. They're still doing the groundwork for just making base building a thing, but the idea is you go to a location, claim it, and a drone will pop up, and you can start building your base. And then you also have to take into consideration what you're going to build, whether that be a personal little home with a nice view, or something for manufacturing, or something resource driven. You have to think about what you're making and for what purpose. That being said, these places are defensible, also by NPCs and AI. You can put overshields onto it, you can place down turrets, you can hire security, which will require attacks, which leads me to believe that these places are raidable, because why would you need defenses other than to fend off people who are trying to take your stuff? I love it. I can't wait. Well, let's dive into the security a bit. You can have high security, which is a lawful claim, full protection, taxes and fees, high cost, low return. You have low security, it's a lawful claim, partial protection, taxes and fees, and it's medium cost with medium return. Or you can do lawless, where there's no land claim, no protection, and there's no cost but a very high return. What that looks like, we'll have to see. I think it's going to be something that a lot of unlawful orgs do, and they may have players just set up to be security at these places. That being said, you can also build turrets as defense and throw up shields. These things will require generators, and there'll be solar panels and generators that require resources to convert into energy. So the different size of buildings that you can make depends on what you're using. You have a surveyor tool, a trolley, or that basically gives you the small buildings. You have a small vehicle that gives you the opportunity to build up to medium buildings, and then the RSI Galaxy gives you up to large buildings, and then the Pioneer allows all buildings. These sort of things that you could do with these bases, like I said, it's resource driven, or you can have an outpost of some sort. It can be manufacturing being all these things that you can craft are blueprint driven. And when it comes to manufacturing, this also includes ships. Yes, you can build ships. Does that mean you'll be able to sell ships in the future? I sure hope so, because we're supposed to have insurance on our ships. So let's say what happens when we don't have insurance on our ships. Then we may have to buy a ship from a third party that manufactured it. There's all sorts of building types. There's utility, extractors, power generators, producers, defense. Pretty much everything and anything you could think of for a base building they're going to be implementing. Okay, here it is. Here it is, the biggest bomb drop of the entire thing. Squadron 42 is feature complete. That does not mean it's ready for release. However, that does mean it's in the polishing phases. There is no release date yet, but if I were to give some sort of prediction, we might see a release date by this time next year, which is my optimism speaking. However, it could be 2 years from now we see a release date. There is no date given for a reason, because people get really upset when dates are given. They have a 26-minute video on Star Citizen's channel showcasing a trailer for Squadron 42. Go watch it after this video is done. So with that said, once this video was finished and Chris Roberts came up onto the stage, there was a somewhat smaller bomb dropped. Everything showcased in the convention is set to be released into Star Citizen within the next year. Did you hear me? Within a year, they plan on releasing everything they showed. I don't think base building is going to be a part of that, but everything else, because everything's already on Squadron 42, they just have to translate that to Star Citizen. That being said, that I don't think Squadron 42 is included in that, clearly, but I do think they will give some sort of update or release date, hopefully a release date, by this time next year. I don't know about you, but I am amped. I am stoked. I am so full of fucking copium. I like it, and it feels so validated now. I've been waiting for this for a very long time, not as long as others, but to all those people that said Star Citizen is a scam, what do you have to say now?